Everybody ready?
We are ready.
We're ready.
Okay. So you guys know Mother Teresa?
Mm-hmm.
Not personally, but
No,
Not personally. Who's Mother Teresa?
she's the one that had.
Catholic nun.
Yeah, no, yes, she's not.
She started a lot of orphanages. She started some organizations that had orphanages and
Yeah.
fed the
Helping the
poor.
poor.
Yeah, she
Especially
loved the
children.
hands and feet of the children.
Yeah.
She was exemplified loving your neighbor.
Yeah.
She got the Nobel Peace Prize actually. She did great work. The Catholic Church made her a saint.
Yeah.
Catholic Church made her a saint. So this is an excerpt from a letter that involved her. It says, Jesus has a very special love for you. But as for me, the silence and the emptiness is so great that I look and I do not see, listen and do not hear. So this letter says, Jesus has a very special love for you. But as for me, the silence and the emptiness is so great that I look and do not see, listen and do not hear. So the interesting thing is that letter wasn't written to Mother Teresa. That letter was written by Mother Teresa to Reverend Michael Vanderpeet. So she wrote to him that she couldn't hear from God, that she no longer heard from God. She used to hear from him, but she couldn't hear from him. And that was actually much of her ministry time when she was actually active. She complained of not being able to hear from God. So not being able to hear from God or having silence is a common problem in Christianity that many believers face at some time.
Yeah.
Many believers face at some time in their Christian walk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Habakkuk 1:2 says, "How long, O Lord, will I call for help, and you will not hear? I cry out violence, yet you do not save." We've talked about the fact that God responds to our prayers in 5 different ways. He responds with yes, no, wait. So you may be asking for direction, clarity, or guidance, and he responds with silence. And we've looked at multiple lessons, 5 lessons so far about God's silence. And today we're looking at when God is silent. So previously we looked at when Bible promises don't come true, when God doesn't heal. We looked at 2 parts to that. When God doesn't respond to prayer and God is changing you. So today we're looking again at when God is silent. So we're going to look at what not to do when God is silent and what to do when God is silent. So first we're going to start with what not to do when God is silent. So the first thing is don't get lost in the reason, or don't get lost in the why. You know the story of Job. He was blameless by God, and then he lost his family members. His family died. He lost his cattle, his wealth.
Yeah.
Then he lost his health. He got sick, and then this is what he cried out to God in Job 23, 3-7. You have that?
If only I knew where to find God, I would go to his court. I would lay out my case and present my arguments. Then I would listen to his reply and understand what he says to me. Would he use his great power to argue with me? No, he would give me a fair hearing. Honest people can reason with him, so I would be forever acquitted by my judge.
So Job longed for the day that he can go and talk to God and plead his case. God, why are you doing this to me? You know, I've been good. He wanted to talk to God face to face, and God would pay attention to him. He dreamed of being able to talk to God, but to find out why, because he never knew why. So there was when I was growing up, we used to go to Venice Beach. We used to go to Venice Beach so when I was around 15 or 16, me and my friends, we went to Venice Beach. We went to just kind of hang out on the beach. You go and people watch.
Yeah.
try to meet some girls or something, you know, eat pizza, and it was just a place you go hang out on Venice Beach. So one day we were at Venice Beach, we were walking down the boardwalk, and there were 3 or 4 police cars on this next to the boardwalk, between the boardwalk and the sand. And as we walked by, they told us, get over here, and they started yelling at us, you know, get your hands on your head, get your hands on the head. Put our hands on the wall, start frisking us, and I remember one police officer said, put your hands on the police car. So I got up against the police car. He said, get your hands off my car, I'll beat you in the head with this billy club. And they were just, and it was just, we were frightened. And the police, they had guns, they had, you know, batons out, they're, you know, yelling at us, bossing us around. And then, we were confused. Like we didn't do anything. We were good kids.
Yeah.
So we didn't do anything, and they were just yelling at us, you know, frisking us, asking what gang we're from, and so then it was worse because it was, you know, nobody you could go to for help, because they were the ones that were supposed to be protecting the service. They were the ones, and so they just. Then eventually and we were like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And eventually they told us to get off the beach. They kicked us off the beach. And we were asking, you know, we never found out why. Like, they never gave us a reason. They never gave us a reason what we did or a reason why they were doing it. And so that was a tough part of it, is, you know, not knowing why. And that's kind of what Job was going through. He was going through this, and he never knew why. So he never got an answer. He never got an answer as to why. And so he was going through this calamity, and his friends were telling him, oh, it's because of this and that. And he was, no, I'm just going to worship God. I'm going to stay with God. And his wife was telling him, no, you should curse God. And he's like, no, and he was faithful. But then as time went on, him wondering why started to make him question, and started to make him lose his way, wondering why. And his friends were coming to him with, I've heard some people call it kindergarten theology, you know, a kindergarten view of God, and that saying, you know, their thing was, okay, if you do good things, then good things will always happen to you. If you do bad things will happen to you. And that's kind of the kindergarten theology, a new Christian theology, or even unbelievers' theology. That you know, if you do good things, then bad things won't happen to you. If you do bad things, then good things won't happen to you. You know that, and that's not always the case. Ravi Zachariah, he had a quote. He said, "Always make wise decisions in the light. It will stand you in good stead when you are in the dark." He said, "Always make wise decisions in the light. It will stand you in good stead when you are in the dark." So meaning that when things are going good, make good decisions, not so the good things will happen to you, but when you're in the dark, which we'll all be, that you'll be in a good shape. And so what he explained was that we're going to all go through darkness, all go through troubles, but if you've done bad things or wrong things, then when you're in trouble, you're going to think, oh, I wonder if this is happening because I did this. Or I wonder if this is happening because I did that. You know, so he's saying if you do good things when things are good, then you won't. Then when you're in bad season, the only thing you'll wonder is, what is God trying to teach me? You'll wonder, what is God trying to teach me, not what is God punishing me for. And so we don't want to get lost trying to figure out the why. We don't want to lose our faith trying to figure out why. It was a story of a little boy and his grandfather. His grandfather took him like 2 miles, drove him 2 miles to a park. And they were walking through the park. He's holding his hand, and he says, "Hey," he's like, "Bobby, do you know how to get home?" And Bobby's like, "No, Grandpa." He said, "You don't know how to get home?" "No." He said, "Oh, so that means you're lost." He's like, "No, Grandpa." He said, "But you don't know how to get home, right?" "No." He said, "So you're lost?" "No." He said, "Why aren't you lost?" He's like, "I'm not lost because I'm with you." And so that's how we should be with God. It's like, you know, hope isn't lost because God is with us. You know, we aren't lost. God is going to be with us. So God is going to be with us whether it's good times or bad times. So kind of we saw Joseph when he was in Potiphar's house. He was a slave, but it says the favor of the Lord was on him. Even though he was a slave. Then he got put in jail. The favor of the Lord was still on him because God was with him. So we just need to remember, focus on the who instead of focusing on the why. So instead of focusing on the reason, focus on who. Focus on the God is with us. Any thoughts?
Makes sense.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. And the second point is, don't create your own reasons. Don't create your own reasons. So I'm sure if any of you have had a friend or somebody in a relationship with, and maybe you call them or text them and they don't respond when you think they should, or you don't hear from them,
Yeah.
or maybe you're going to meet somebody and they don't show up, and after a while you may start to come up with reasons why they didn't show up. You come up with your own reasons. Oh, well, maybe this happened, or maybe maybe think, oh, well, maybe they were in an accident, or you maybe think, oh, well, maybe they're doing this that they shouldn't do, or maybe, so you start coming up with reasons. So an example would be let's say I had a girlfriend, and I'm a big Raiders fan, and so on Sunday, every week I'm watching the Raiders because the Raiders are dominating the NFL and they're winning by 20, 30 points every week. So this is a fictitious story, obviously. And so I'm watching the Raiders every week, and she hates football.
Yeah.
So she goes out with her friends or shopping. But then one Sunday I wake up and I say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to watch football today. I'm going to take her to brunch. So I text her at 10 o'clock and say, hey, let's have brunch today. And then, so I'm thinking about it. Okay, we'll go to this certain place. She likes Eggs Benedict. We'll get her Eggs Benedict. And then 10:30, she hasn't texted back. Okay, so I'm planning it in my head. Then 11, I still haven't heard from her. So okay, let me give her a call. So I call her, and it goes straight to voicemail. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Why does it go straight? It never goes straight to voicemail. I said, maybe she was calling when I called. Let me try again. Go straight to voicemail again. It's like, okay, why is that happen? What's going on? And so then 11:30 rolls around, still don't hear from her. Then it's like, oh, I wonder what's going on. How can she hear? But then 12 o'clock come. Now it's about brunch time. Still haven't heard back from her. Then it started to think, I remember how she was looking at Eric that time when maybe Eric invited his place for Bible study.
Yeah.
The 12:30 rolls around. It's like, oh man, 1 o'clock. It's like, oh, I remember that barista put that little happy face on her cup. I wonder.
Right.
Then 2 o'clock comes. It's like, oh man, she better. Oh man, this is 2:30. Still haven't heard. It's like, okay, well, what's going on? Is she? So 3 o'clock, you finally beep, get a text. Oh, I'm coming over. It's like, oh, okay, she's coming over. All right, we're gonna see what happens. So she comes over and she's like, hey, how you doing? How am I doing? How are you doing? What was your day like? She said, oh yeah, I'm feeling great. Oh yeah, I'm feeling really good. You feeling really good, huh? Well, why are you feeling really good? Who are you with? What do you mean, who was I with? Who are you with? What do you mean, who was I with? Who were you with today? I was with your sister and your mother. It's your sister's birthday, remember? We went to the spa. She asked you to go and you said you were busy, remember?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so sometimes we do that with God.
Yeah.
We come up with reasons. So we have our own plans. We make our own plans. We plan to do things, but we don't involve God in those plans. And then when those things don't come true, we start, God, where is God in this? Where is God? And so we didn't involve God in the plan, and we do. So then we start wondering. Then we start, coming up with reasons. Oh, is it because I did the wrong thing? Oh, is it because God doesn't love me? Oh, is it because? So we've come up with reasons And so we don't want to come up with our own reasons, because when God is silent, we can come up with our own reasons as to why he's silent. And so when you're hurting and in pain, pain makes us think things that aren't true. It makes us believe things that aren't true. When we're in pain, it makes us say things that aren't true.
I thought you were, I thought you were going to say at the end of all that you realized that in this scenario you had written all this stuff, and then you sat around and wondered all day, and then you went back to your phone and realized that you did this message but you forgot to hit send, so she forgot it.
Yeah, that would work too.
And then you're sitting there being mad that you got no response. Well, you didn't hit send.
Yeah, you gotta send your prayers, send your requests.
No.
So the other thing when God is silent not to do is don't mistake momentum for instruction. Don't mistake momentum for instruction. So what does that mean? So let's say God tells me, I want you to pack your bags. I say, okay. And God tells me, I want you to get on the 5 freeway and go south. So I get on the 5 freeway, I go south. Then an hour has gone past. He says, I want you to keep going south. So I keep going south. I was like, I don't know what's going on. But then I start to think, oh, God must want me to go to Disneyland. God must want me to go to Disneyland, because I was thinking about Mickey Mouse the other day. So I get to LA, and God hasn't said anything, but I turn off the freeway, I go to Disneyland, I get on the rides, having a good time. And then God says, I was trying to get you to go to the San Diego Zoo to save the panda bears. But I was going, I heard from him to send me in a certain direction. But on the way there, it was something either I wanted in that direction. So I said, that must be what God wants me to do. Or just something I see in that direction. So God didn't clearly say that that was the instruction. But I'm taking the momentum. It's going in this direction. So I'm assuming that that's instruction to do this over here. It's like he told me to go this way. But that doesn't mean he's saying, this is where I'm taking you.
Did you see the movie Harriet?
No.
Oh, Harry Tubman?
Yes.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what happened in it?
It was a very good movie.
Yeah,
But
it was.
one of the things that this reminds me of in the movie, that she goes back to she thinks she's going back after she's been free for a while. She's going back to get her husband, to have her husband come back with her. And her husband, well, anyway, she thinks that that's what she's supposed to be doing, and she's got that momentum, and she goes back, but in the end it wasn't for her to bring her husband back, it was for her to bring some other people back. But so she was going the one direction, she had the momentum, but her instruction wasn't bring your husband back. That's what she thought.
Right.
The reason she went back was different. And in case you're watching the movie, I won't do the whole thing, but
Okay. Yeah. So
it was, yeah.
So we have to make sure to stay listening, even when we think we know where we're headed. Continue listening. Don't assume if you didn't get clear, complete directions. Don't assume you have them.
Right.
Keep
And that's
listening.
what she said. She says,
Keep
I
listening.
thought that God wanted me to go back to do this, but clearly I wasn't listening, and God had another plan, and his plan was better than, was bigger than my plan.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Yeah, and that's what happens a lot of time. If it's a big plan, God won't tell you the whole plan at once. He may tell you piece by piece.
to get you going in the right direction, and
Get you in the right direction, right? Then to reveal it to you, because maybe you wouldn't have went through it if you knew the whole thing. We saw something similar to that with with Jesus and the disciples. So after the last supper, Judas betrayed them, and then Jesus gave them this instruction. You have Luke,
Yeah.
there, Luke 22:36 through 38.
Mm-hmm. Where's this 38? Okay. Oh, here we go. I got it. He said to them, "But now, if you have a purse, take it, also a bag, and if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. It is written, and he was numbered with the transgressors. And I tell you that this must be fulfilled in me. Yes, it was written about me is reaching its fulfillment." The disciple says, "See, Lord, you have two swords." "That's enough," he replied.
All right. So after the Last Supper, Jesus told them to get your swords, get your weapons ready. If you don't have a weapon, sell your clothes to get a weapon. So Jesus is basically saying it's about to go down. Get your weapons. Let's get ready to go. And then so they go, and by the time they get to the garden, then the Roman soldiers come to get Jesus, and Peter says, it's going down. And he starts chopping, chops the guard's ear off. And Jesus says, "Peter, what are you doing?" He gets the ear, puts it back on. He says, "What are you doing, Peter? This is meant to be." And Peter's like, "But you said it was going down. You told me to get my sword." So Peter mistook the momentum for instruction. So Jesus said, "Get your weapons." So Peter assumed, well, I got my weapon, now it's time to use it. But God didn't tell it. Jesus didn't tell him to use it. So he mistook the momentum. It looked like it was going in a certain direction, but then you acted prematurely. So make sure when God is silent that you don't act prematurely because of some things. Maybe some things you did hear clearly. Don't just assume that you know where that's taking you. All right. So now we will look at what to do when God is silent. What should you do when God is silent? When God is silent, the first thing you should do is you should read and memorize scriptures.
Yes.
Read and memorize scriptures. So there's a story of a Chinese evangelist named Wang Mingdao. Wang Mingdao. He was in prison for 18 years. So he just had the scriptures that he memorized and the hymns he memorized. And so they said that every morning he would sing a song. He would sing a hymn that he knew. And the guards would yell at him to stop, to cut it out, stop talking. But he wouldn't stop. He kept singing every year. So after a couple years, when he was singing in the morning, the guard would come by his cell and listen to the song. Then after a couple more years, they asked him to teach them the song. So what he had memorized, he had with him in the time of trouble. So that's why we want to memorize scriptures and hymns. Is when we're in time of trouble, we can turn to those. When we don't hear from God, we can turn to the scriptures. We can turn to the scriptures we know, or we can turn to the scriptures to read. So we can read the Psalms and the Proverbs for direction. When we don't hear from God, we can turn to God's Word. God has given us instructions, so we can turn to God's Word. And we can also do the worship, like Wang Mingdao did. We can worship God when we don't hear from him. So when God is silent, one thing we can do is read the Bible, and we can worship. Another thing we could do when God is silent is do the last thing you heard. So an example of me driving down the freeway, God said, drive down the 5, and I get to L.A., I was like, do I turn off? Or, should I turn back? Should I stop? It's like, well, last clear thing he said was drive down the 5. So I want to keep doing that. Or even more appropriately, God told me clearly to join Abundant Life. God told me clearly to join Abundant Life. So, whether a pastor leaves or whether change happens or something happens, unless he tells me something different, all of that's irrelevant. He clearly told me this, so it's like I want to do the last clear thing. I may ask him, Lord, okay, now is it time to do something, but unless he gives another clear word, you have to do whatever the last thing he clearly told you.
Yeah.
If God gave you a clear word, then you want to do what God told you. So go back to what he said, or maybe he didn't say it, but it was in the Bible. So you can go look for it, and you ask him. He's silent because he already wrote it in the Bible. You're like, God, my neighbor keeps having his dog mess up my lawn. Should I kill him? Should I kill him, God? And God is silent. It's like, well, you could go look at the Bible and clearly find the answer. He already gave it to you.
Yeah.
So he may be silent because he already gave you the answer.
So
he may have already given you the answer.
Yeah.
Another reason God may be silent, or another thing to do when God is silent, is to fast. To fast. You have Psalms 35, 11 through 13.
Malicious witnesses testify against me. They accuse me of crimes I know nothing about. They repay me evil for good. I am sick with despair. Yet, when they were ill, I grieved for them. I denied myself by fasting for them, but my prayers returned unanswered.
All right, so we see David, he has enemies. His enemies are coming up against him. They're repaying, giving him evil when he does good for them. So this is Saul. And he says, but instead of cursing them, what David does is when they're sick, he puts on sackcloth and he humbles his soul with fasting. So sackcloth is, humbling your body. It's, you're just dressing simply, but humbling your soul. So he's humbled his soul by fasting. So fasting humbles your soul. Mm-hmm. So fasting is a way that we see often in the Bible is when you want God to act or when you want God to give you an answer, they would fast. And fast, so humble, when the Bible talks about humble yourself and pray, it means fasting and praying. So in the Bible, fasting was often done to get an answer from God. When God wouldn't answer, they would fast. So that's something we can do. And fasting is, in the Bible, is only abstaining from food. They never fasted from Netflix or fasted from Facebook. It was only fasting for food. Mm-hmm. So not that fasting from Netflix or Facebook or things are bad. Exactly. So so it could be good, and you can spend that time. You can spend that time with God, and that's good to do.
Right.
But that's not necessarily going to give you the same effect. Right. Of fasting for food. So fasting for food, the Bible clearly implies benefits from it, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the same benefits fasting from Netflix or Facebook. So fasting from food will get God to answer you, or can help getting God to answer you. That doesn't mean that fasting from Facebook is going to get an answer to your prayer. And also hearing, giving you clarity of hearing, fasting can help with that. And we also see fasting, an example of fasting in Matthew, John the Baptist, Matthew 11, 18 and 19, it says, "For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, behold, a gluttonous man and a drunkard, and a friend of tax collectors and sinners." So they're saying John the Baptist was fasting. So they were saying, oh, he must have a demon. They said, Jesus is not fasting. He's eating and drinking. So they're saying, oh, he's a glutton. He's a drunkard. But this implies that so John the Baptist is fasting, that means he has a demon. So that implies that if you had a demon, you would be fasting. So they saw fasting as a way to get rid of demons. So if you had a demon, if you're demon possessed, fasting was a way to get rid of a demon. So fasting is spiritual warfare too. So spiritual warfare, fasting is a spiritual warfare. So if you're battling addictions or temptations or compulsions or obedience, fasting can help with that. Yeah. Fasting can help with that, in a way that fasting from Netflix or something is fasting from food, because it humbles your soul. It humbles your soul, not just your mind or your body. It humbles your soul as well. So fasting is something you can do when God is silent. Another thing you can do when God is silent is you can just pray your unedited prayers or your complaints. Whatever your issues are. If you have a problem, if you have a complaint, take it straight to God. You don't have to be polite and reverent with God necessarily. You can tell God, your complaints. Don't just complain to your friends. You can take your complaint straight to God. He can handle it. You have Habakkuk 1:2-3.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah. The Lord is a jealous and avenging God. The Lord takes vengeance and is filled with wrath. The Lord takes vengeance on his foes and vents his wrath against his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger, but great in power. The Lord will not leave the guilty unpunished. His way is in the whirlwind and the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet.
Amen. Is that what you have?
Oh, sorry, this is Nahum. Ooh. Oh, Habakkuk.
Habakkuk.
Ooh, sorry. Hold on. Okay, now I got it. How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you did not listen, or cried out to you violence, but you did not save? Do not save. Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. Their strife and of conflict abounds.
So Habakkuk is going to God. He's saying,
Yeah.
I'm asking you for help, and you don't do anything. I'm telling you that they're doing violence to us, and you're not doing anything. How long are you going to let this iniquity go on? How long are you going to let this destruction continue? So Habakkuk is going to God, and he's complaining about, these are the things I'm praying, and you're not responding. So that when God is silent, we can go back to him and tell him what our issue is. We can ask him the hard question. We can give God unfiltered. We don't have to filter our prayers to go to God. We can confess our doubts, disappointment, and struggles. So this is Habakkuk later. He says, Habakkuk 1:13.
You gave me Psalms.
Oh,
Do you have? Well, he had 1, 2, 3. 13 is
Okay.
just a few verses down.
Yeah.
okay. I can do it. So Habakkuk 1:13 says, your eyes are too pure to approve evil, and you cannot look on wickedness with favor. Why do you look with favor on those who deal treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up those that are more righteous? So Habakkuk is complaining again, but the interesting thing is, so between the first prayer and the second prayer, God actually answered Habakkuk. So Habakkuk went to God and said, hey, there's treachery going on. You aren't doing anything. What's going on? And then God responded, Habakkuk, I'm about to do something that's incredible that people aren't going to believe. I'm going to get the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans, they're known for being treacherous. They're known for having no mercy on their enemies. They're known for being strong warriors. I'm going to raise them up, and I'm going to send them to attack you and your people, and they're going to destroy you. So Rebecca's response is basically, yeah, I don't like that plan, God. I don't like that plan, God. I don't like that plan at all.
Right.
So he said, your eyes are too pure to approve evil, and you look not on the wickedness with favor. Why do you look with favor on those who deal treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked are swallowing us up? So Habakkuk's saying, yeah, I don't like that plan. So he heard from God, but he's going to God. He's telling him his disappointment. I understand that's your will, because you told me it's your will, but I don't like it. It's not fair. So you could tell God if you think something's not fair. If you tell God if something's not fair, even if it's his will, you can complain to him that you think it's not fair. Now, Habakkuk knew it was his will because God told him clearly that it was his will. Or, so we can know if his will, if God tells us, or if it's in the Bible that it was God's will. So Habakkuk is saying, even though it was his will, but other than that, just because it happens doesn't necessarily mean it was his will. But that's enough. But you can go to God and complain. You say, I don't think this is fair. I don't think this is right.
Yeah.
It's okay to, and it's okay to doubt. It's okay to doubt, to have doubt in the plan. You know, you can't really have faith if you don't doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, do you have faith that today is Tuesday? It's like, it's not really faith. It's like, do you have faith today is Tuesday? It's like, I wouldn't really say I have faith today is Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. It's like, I know today is Tuesday.
Yeah.
So faith is only there if there's room for doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's no room for doubt, then it's not faith. Any thoughts? Okay, so another thing we could do when God is silent is we could trust that God is still at work. Trust that He is still at work. You have Psalm 62, 5-6.
Let all that I am wait quietly before God, for my hope is in Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will not be shaken.
So it says, although I wait in silence, my hope is in God. So I'm going to stay hopeful in God regardless. I'm going to keep depending on God regardless of the circumstances. I'm going to keep hoping on God regardless of what other people are saying. I'm going to keep focusing on God. My hope is in God. I'm going to trust that God is still at work. No matter what my fears and doubts, I'm going to trust that God is at work. No matter if the pastor leaves, I'm going to trust that God is still at work. No matter what, you know, if the odds are against me, I'm going to trust that God is still at work. So he says, my rock and my salvation, my stronghold, and I will not be shaken. So nothing that happens can make me not trust that God is still at work. And so we saw Habakkuk, he told God, he complained to God. God had a plan that didn't address his complaint at all. It just made it worse. He went back to God and said, yeah, I don't like that plan, God. But God went ahead and did the plan. God sent the Chaldeans to destroy them because they were worshiping idols and turning away from God is the reason God did it, which is pretty much the reason He keeps doing it and keeps doing it and keeps doing it in the Old Testament, because they keep turning back to idols and they keep worshiping other idols and false gods, and He punishes them again and they do it again. But so God punishes them, and Habakkuk doesn't like it, but then by Habakkuk 3:17 he still doesn't like it, but this is what he says. 3:17 Habakkuk 3:17, it says, though the fig tree should not blossom, and there be no fruit on the vines, though the yield of the olives should fail, and the fields produce no food, though the flock should be cut off from the fold, and there be no cattle in the stalls, yet I will exalt the Lord. I will rejoice in God my salvation. So he's saying, no, even though things may not be going the way I want them to go, I'm still going to exalt the Lord. I'm still going to praise the Lord. So that's even if God is silent, if things are not going the way we want to go and God is silent, we still want to praise God. We still want to praise God. So it's that. But even if faith that the 3 Hebrew boys had, you know, I know God can save us, but even if He doesn't, we still won't bow down to false gods. So we want to continually praise God, even if things aren't going the way we want, even if He's not doing what we think He should do. We want to continue to praise Him. But then also we want to keep asking. So some people wonder, you know, if I've asked once, twice, you know, God heard me, should I keep asking? It's okay to keep asking. It's okay to keep asking. Jesus even told a parable that was to explain them to keep asking, and then the writer tells you before the parable that Jesus is telling this parable to tell them to keep asking. So Luke 18:1-8, it says, now He was telling them a parable to show that all times they ought to pray and not lose heart, saying, in a certain city there was a judge who did not fear God and did not respect man. There was a widow in that city. She kept coming to him, saying, give me legal protection from my opponent. For a while he was unwilling, but afterward he said to himself, even though I do not fear God, nor respect man, yet because this widow bothers me, I will give her legal protection. Otherwise, by continually coming to me, she will wear me out. And the Lord said, Hear what unrighteous judge said. Now would not God bring out justice for his elect, who cry to him day and night? And will he delay long over them? I will tell you that he will bring about justice for them quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? So Jesus is saying that just like this woman, she kept going to him. The judge, he didn't respect God. He wasn't a godly man. He didn't respect people. He didn't respect the woman. But just because she kept coming, he answered her prayer. And Jesus, the point of the parable is, Jesus is saying, keep asking. You know, you ask God, he's silent. Ask him again, he's silent. Ask him again. Keep praying. Don't lose heart. Just keep asking. So it may not. So maybe keep asking. Maybe God is changing the circumstances while you're asking. Maybe God is working on someone else's heart. But keep asking. Keep asking. And we see examples of that with the Canaanite woman. The Canaanite woman, her daughter was sick, and she came to Jesus and said, "Can you heal my baby?" And Jesus says, "Well, I didn't come to the Canaanites. I came to the Jews. I didn't come for you guys." And she said, "Yeah, that's great, but can you heal my daughter?" Jesus says, "Well, why should I give things to dogs?" And she said, "Heal my daughter." And Jesus healed her daughter. Jesus healed her daughter, went ahead and healed her daughter. And just like Jacob, he wrestled with God. He said, "I'm not going to let go until you bless me." So we need to wrestle with God. We need to keep asking. We need to keep at it. Doesn't matter whether you think you deserve it. Doesn't matter where you think God should act or not. You can keep on knocking. Keep knocking. And then we see that we also want to keep serving. So just like Mother Teresa did, she couldn't hear. It was near the beginning of her, when she started doing the amazing things, that she stopped hearing from God. But she kept serving. She kept serving. She kept serving to the point where she gave the Nobel Peace Prize, where the worldly non-Christian people recognize her efforts. You know, so keep serving even when God is silent. Keep serving. Any thoughts?
No, the thing is that you keep serving no matter what's going on.
Yeah.
The circumstances around the church. Keep serving.
Keep serving, yeah.
Lift up God. Give God all the glory.
Yeah. Keep ushering, keep singing,
Yep.
keep attending.
Keep attending. Keep
Yeah.
taking out the trash if you're told to.
Yeah, taking out the trash. keep serving.
Keep parking the people in the parking lot, all of that.
Yeah. Printing out the songs. Keep serving.
Put on everything.
I would, but
No, it's the future.
Yeah.
If you had already done it, you couldn't keep. Well, there'll be more.
Yeah.
Okay, so in conclusion. So then finally, one thing not to do is don't let the circumstances distract you from God. Don't let the circumstances distract you from God. This is a story in Matthew 14:22-33 of Jesus walking on the water.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Jesus walking on the water,
Yeah.
Jesus had talked to a large crowd.
Right.
He told the disciples to go across the water.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, he went to the mountain to pray.
Mm-hmm.
When he came down, the disciples were in the middle of the water, and there was a storm happened. So Jesus decided he would walk across.
Mm-hmm. You're looking at it first.
Yeah, they didn't recognize him. They
Right,
said,
right.
it's a ghost.
Yeah.
They said,
Exactly.
it's a ghost.
Yeah.
And Jesus said, be courageous. Don't worry, it's me. Jesus said, don't worry, it's me. And so, Peter says, well, if that's you, Jesus, tell me to come. Tell me to come. And Jesus says, come. So Peter walks out on the water, and he's walking on the water. He's doing a miracle. He's doing something no other man has done. He's walking on water. He's walking on the sea. His feet are supporting him on the sea. He's walking on the water, but then he starts looking at the storm. He's looking at the wind. He's looking at everything, and he starts to get scared, and he sinks. And immediately Jesus gets him and puts him into the boat. But what that tells us is that sometimes we may see a ghost, we may see something fearful, we may see a frightening situation, but it might be Jesus. So we may see a situation happening, but it may be Jesus at work through that situation. We may think it's something going for bad, but Jesus may be using it for good. So it may be, we think it's a ghost, but it might actually be Jesus. God may be using it for good. Something better may turn out from it. It may turn out better than you thought. And also that Peter wanted to come out on the water because he knew Jesus' voice. So when we hear from God and we know his voice, it gives us courage, it gives us faith, it gives us strength. We can step out on faith when we hear from God. When we hear from God, it gives us courage, it gives us strength. And then it also teaches us about the wind, not to focus on our troubles. Yeah. So when we're in a situation, when we're in a struggle, we don't want to focus on the struggle. We don't want to focus on the issues. We want to focus on Jesus. We want to keep our focus on Jesus, keep our focus on God, even when we're in struggles. So there was a story of this telegraph operator. You guys know what a telegraph is? So telegraph is something they used to use to communicate. It was something that would go beep, 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 and it would send it across a wire. Before there were computers, before there were phones, they would just send like beep, 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 and it was signals that were coding words. So there were people who knew how to code words
and wrote it down.
Yeah, and they would receive it and they'd write it down. They'd interpret it. Somebody would take it written and they'd code it, and the person on the other side would get the message, so they could send messages that way. Telegraph. So there was a guy he was a good telegraph person, and he needed a job, and they were hiring at the big telegraph company. So he walked in, he was 20 minutes late. You know, he had all kind of issues that happened on the way there, so he was 20 minutes late. He walked in, he heard a telegraph going over the loudspeaker. He said, okay, I'm in the right place. And he saw the receptionist. He said, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm here for the telegraph position. And she said, oh, well, the president is interviewing people. She said, go sit over there. And he looked over there, and there were 4 other men already there. And as he walked up, he overheard them, and one of the men was complaining to the other guy. He was like, I can't believe it. A nice place like this, they have Starbucks coffee. He said, they should have Pete's. Pete's is so much better. Why do they have it Starbucks? Then he heard the other people, the guy was complaining. He said, well, how's he have us sitting out here for 30 minutes? Why are we sitting out here that long? We're just out here waiting. And he decides not to engage them, and he just sits there. So he's sitting there for 2 or 3 minutes, and then he gets up, and he walks into the president's office. And they see the president welcome him in and close the door. So then they're all complaining, what? He's the last one here. How did he get in? Why did he just walk in? You know, how did he just walk in? That's rude. He shouldn't just walk in. And they were in there for 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, the president is laughing and, you know, slapped the guy in the back, and he walks over to the other people. He's like, oh, thank you guys for coming out. He said, but I've already made the hire. So have a good evening. They're like, no, that's not fair. We were here first. You didn't even interview us. Why? You know, we were here first. How come you didn't let us in? Yeah. He said, well, I sat in my office for 30 minutes, sending the telegraph over the loudspeaker, saying, whoever can understand this, come into my office. He said, I sat there for 30 minutes. Whoever can understand this, come into my office. He said, and none of you came in. He heard it. He came into the office. And so therefore, that's why he got in. So there may be... So we don't want to focus on the problems, the issues. We may be missing clear instructions. So the complaining and the whining can keep us from hearing from God. So we want to continue our quiet time even where we're in trouble. So when God is silent, we want to continue to listen. When God is silent, we don't want to focus on the storm. We want to focus on Jesus. We want to focus on hearing God. So you don't want to let your problems keep you from hearing. You don't want to let your pain keep you from hearing. You don't want to let your loneliness keep you from hearing. You don't want to let your fears keep you from hearing God, or your successes keep you from hearing God. You don't want to let your confusion keep you from hearing God, or your guilt keep you from hearing God. So don't let your problems or the silence distract you from hearing God. So it's walking away. Let's seek the truth and live the life. It was a lesson. Oh, God is changing you. God is changing you.
Yes, it was very, very much resonated with me. I think that was one of my favorite ones last week.
Oh, really?
Last time.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite. Well, that one I mixed in because the the whole part about well, I guess there was a lot of different parts, but one part was the short message was the psychology part about like the fixers and the takers and the
Oh
pimps
boy, I
and
resonated with a lot of that stuff. It's like, oh yeah, okay. I see this. I see
and the
what
core
you're doing here.
issue, the core issue. So that was kind of deep.
But thank you
That was your
for
favorite
being
one?
here with us
Oh, you're
and
welcome.
teaching us. And
Yes, and I'll continue to be here as long as God asks me to. So until He tells me to stop.